how it escalated to that point. Pastor, talk to me a little bit about the spiritual ramifications of this, and how we can look at this in a spiritual way of not having violence happen. Because right now you've got, blacks against whites, and it's everybody is saying things based on color and not the situation. How can we kind of steer away from that, where we're not trying to get, to a point where we're violently going against each other racially?
Well, first of all, Rick, thank you for inviting me, you and Brenda, to the McCain train.
Woo, woo, woo.
I was waiting on that choo-choo thing.
That is a terrible woo woo woo.
Right.
There you go. That's even louder. But go ahead.
But as I listened to the conversation around the table, as well as around the world about what is taking place in these different areas, I was reading an article today how we have to be careful in labeling, even though it may appear to be a black and white issue, the victims, and we're using the victims as a means for a cause, because when it's that black and white issue or situation, we are like, okay, well, this is what it is, and we need to stand, we need to march, we need to fight. From a pastoral perspective, I would say, first of all, we know that the heart of man is wicked. And was she right or wrong, or was the cop right or wrong? I mean, we'll be fighting about it, talking about it for a while, but I think, again, the issues that we're seeing is just the heart of man. And not until we begin to address the heart of man will we begin to see some changes. We can march until our feet fall off. We can protest. That's not going to change the heart of men. The only thing I know that can change the heart of man is the gospel. And I think we just need to do more from a church perspective, or from the viewpoint of what the body of Christ is all about, is to reach people, I mean, at all levels, and introduce them to Christ. Mm-hmm. My life was changed, and I'm quite sure those of us around the table and those who may be listening, our lives have been changed as a result. We were wicked or doing things that were not legal. We was talking about crossing lanes and all this other stuff, but it was not until we introduced to Christ that we began to change our spirit and our attitude, or how we thought or how we act now. This flesh, man, is hard to, keep it under control. So anger and depression, all of that arises after, if there's no connection with God. So that's where I'm at. And the jury's still out about this case and the other cases, but I began to just really look at the heart of man. So it could have been a white cop and a white female, but then maybe the situation wouldn't be the same. But at the same time, it's still evil. It's still wickedness. Yeah. It's still sin. It's still violence. And that's how I see things.
Yeah, that's my big brother there. So you bring in perspective. We've got to have that. This is a religious show now. This ain't. These are black people talking about black issues. That's all it is. We're gonna be talking about some white issues too, by the way. Mm-hmm. But we've got to keep the perspective of what God, how godly people should be. I'm gonna go back because I'm gonna have Pastor Jordan coming back and forth and giving perspective on how we should look at things. But we were talking about the guy. His name is Brian. What is it? Encina? Is that how you say it? Encina? I think that's how you say it. We were saying he was only a cop for like less than a year, a little bit over a year. I told you he worked at the Bluebell Creamery. Mm-hmm. He was an agricultural person. They were saying that he violated the protocol of what a policeman was supposed to do. And so at that point, this becomes, and I read something that I was reading about, at the point that he violates the protocol of what a policeman is supposed to do, he's not really acting as in a complete capacity. He's only acting as a man of authority with a suit on. Mm-hmm. And that he does not have the capacity of a police officer. He's not doing the duties of a police officer because he's broken the protocol of what a police officer should do. This article also that I read here was saying that people, now I don't agree with this. I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't agree with it. They were saying that if a policeman is doing an unjust law and he's doing something unjustly, you as a citizen and your Fourth Amendment right have the right to resist. I'm not going to agree with that.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I would say that, based on what's been happening in the world lately, you don't need to resist at all. And a lot of people, and I'm going to go to you, D. Curtis, are saying that, Sandra should have just kept her mouth quiet. She should have just been quiet, and none of this would have happened. They're placing the burden on her. Even though it may be true, is that the right way to look at this?
It's unfair. It's unfair that you would blame her for her passing. Now, my thought is that when you have a female that is belligerent and you as a male officer, you call in for backup and you wait for a female officer to handle her, then you are doing something within protocol. That's right. But if any officer gives you a police order to do something, you should comply with that for fear that something terrible can happen to you.
Yeah.
If I'm ever stopped by the police for any reason, they will see my hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
But does that? I'm trying to not really.
Well,
go
no,
in.
you got to be Brenda Shabazz.
I was waiting on Shabazz to come out.
Brenda Shabazz got to come out sometime. So
no matter what we do, you're still driving and ticketed while black. She could have been Michelle Obama to the girl on 47th and King Drive, abiding by the rules, didn't say anything, adhered to everything the officer probably wanted her to do and say. But yet, the thing that aggravates me the most, she's in her car, and if she's pulled over because she didn't signal while crossing lanes, okay, that's a simple act. Just why do you have to get out the car? Why do I have to put out my cigarette? You do you, what I do here. I will sit here and be quiet. But when the officer got belligerent with her, and no one mentioned when he hit her head on the concrete, that was enough for me right there. It's like, I'm telling you, and she's smart enough, and whoever videotaped is smart enough to say, he actually bashed her head in. See, I have a whole different spin on this thing, which my husband wants to give me a 7-second delay, censor for me. Right. But I'm like, I just have a whole different take on this.
Brenda, I'm going to say this. This is why I feel this whole year has been about not black on black. No, it's attacking our race. Mm-hmm. I'm a proud black woman. Wouldn't be one nobody else. But it's been attacked. And like I said earlier, while the Republicans got 13 people running to be president and 2 Democratic people, it is now time, because we done had a black president in for 8 years, it's time to put us in check. And that's what they're doing. They putting us in our right, because we done got out of hand.
From A
we done
to
got
Z.
uppity. We done got uppity. We done got uppity. We got to put them back in their place.
Brenda Shabazz meet Kim Mustafa.
That's okay. High five, girl. Boop, boop.
And if I could just jump in, if Mrs. Jordan was sitting here and she was talkative, she would be right on that bandwagon.
I know.
She has made mention to me that the officer's not integrity, but his ego was crushed, moved in such a way, and that's probably why he got out of hand too.
I agree with my
Rick,
girl.
Yeah, and Rick, I think you made some mention earlier because he was an inexperienced officer.
Yeah,
breaking protocol. But what do we say about veteran officers that's breaking protocol every day in the city of Chicago?
They teaching a young
and they're not all white police officers that's breaking protocol. The relationship between public servants and people who are to serve and protect amongst the community has to be developed much better. We have to find other ways by creating this atmosphere of unity amongst those who are serving and those who So it's a lot to be talked about. But again, there's a family out there now that's mourning, and got to prepare.
Right.
If they haven't already had their services.
They had the services.
Yeah, and so I would hope that we could also pray for them and make sure that, that they get through this process regardless of how it happened. And, we can't live with what ifs. What if she did not? What if she would have did what the police officer, because we only live in a world of absolutes. And so we would never know what if she would have complied, how all of this would have turned out. I do believe also God allowed things to happen in order to raise awareness or consciousness in our minds and our hearts and spirits about issues and things of that nature. And so sometimes I believe more and more each day that I view this world is that God allows things to happen in order to mobilize or to cause people to start looking at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So there will be those that, I won't call them martyrs, but there will be those that lives will have to be sacrificed in order for the truth to come out about what's going on.
I'll tell you this. You were talking about the funeral. Her funeral was on Saturday the 25th. The service was held at the DuPage African Methodist Episcopalian Church in Laos. The family, this is one of the things I'm going to bring up as well, and then we're going to go into commercial break. It says prior to the funeral service, the reverend there said Bland was utilized. She was a courageous woman who refused to be subdued and silenced. Now, I bring that up because back in the back, they always have comments and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to mention the names, but this was some of the comments. And this is when you can tell that we're racially divided because it says here, Reverend Teresa Dear, pastor of the AME Church, said Bland was utilized as a courageous woman who refused to be subtle and silenced. If she would have acted subdued and silent, she would still be alive today. That's one person. Now, this one is something. It says, can we bury this story already? I'm sick of hearing her gold-digging family crying foul, playing when all the evidence is showing one such thing. No ghetto lottery coming to you. Move on. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself and not bonding out her with a $500 and getting her a psychiatrist. So these are some of the things that are being said. I mean, these are the opinions of people, and that's what I'm saying. What we're seeing is that for African Americans, it's explosive. That you would say something like that, but for most other people, they may be looking at it in this direction. And how do we get to a point where we stop looking at this as a situation of color? Because I'm gonna tell you something. It's happening to a lot of African American people. But until we can start looking at the facts and not look at the color, then this thing is going to continuously happen. Hey, this is Reverend Rick McCain with my baby, my girl, my boo, Alta Brenda McCain. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks.
Rebuild your relationships with God.
Good evening. This is Reverend Rick McCain, and this is something you should know. Violence against African Americans by police have increased dramatically in the past years, where some are saying that the police are the new KKK. People are getting so upset that concerns about racial outbursts of hatred are growing at an all-time high, and doing anything while black has become a death sentence. If you are feeling upset about these things too, then there's something you should know. People of color have a new fear, and that color is blue. But with so many killings and beatings, some are thinking about retaliation and vengeance. But the Bible tells us in Romans 12:19 not to seek revenge. Behold, neither avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. 1 Corinthians 4:5 says, Therefore, do not pronounce judgment before the time,